All right, jumping right into part four. So, in 2021, I had a business that I grew from zero, a single solo mom on food stamps, pregnant, to 560K months in 18 months, right? In 2014, I opened a profitable restaurant that went from idea. It's just like this crazy idea. Let's open a gluten-free, grain-free, totally free of toxins restaurant. And it from idea to opening was 6 months, despite having literally no experience running a restaurant. Although I did serve coffee at Starbucks and I worked at a pizza place once upon a time in my early 20s. And it went just like that. Very quick, very easy. The path opens, it's done, right? I did it through one, living my core four, the genius sequence, the first four of your gene keys, without knowing I was doing it. Number two, taking the impossible leaps of courage and faith consistently, little ones each day. And in each instance, it eventually broke. So, what broke it? Fatal mistake number one. Every time I built something and it was successful, I questioned it and whether it was what I should be doing, how I should be doing it, because I did not know my gifts. I allowed the outside to come in and tell me how I should be running a business. The collective, not even people in person, but just the collective guilt and shame came, and my own mirror of my own woundings. It just started coming through. So that was my fatal mistake number one. I didn't know myself well enough and my gifts. Mistake number two, I didn't know how to lead. I was codependent. It was incredibly difficult not to get commingled and take energy on off my customers, employees, my staff, everybody around me. Fatal mistake number three, an unhealed heart and falling into the shadows of my sacred wounding. Customer complaint, team complaints, carrying the weight of my shoulder, the exhaustion, the rejection eventually caught up to me because I was not dealing with things as we were coming up and using them to grow because I didn't know how. So, this is where the Venus sequence, the second part of our work with the Gene Keys, come together. First, we do the Genius, where we open up your purpose, your evolution, your life's work, and your radiance. Then we go into the core of your heart. And that's where you, in stages, unravel your sacred woundings and you work with them as you build your business. We bring every underperforming employee, every contractor, every unhappy client, every conflict or discomfort or just getting a weird look to the table. And we ask, what is this showing me? And then instead of saying this is hard, we say, thank God this showed up. This is for me. Because what's it pressing against is your shadow archetypes. What it's battering inside of you is the shadow archetype. The shadow in Gene Keys, they're nothing but archetype. This is core archetypal work that we're doing here. And every time we integrate an archetype, guess what we get? A gift, power. The archetypes that are out there, you is in here inside, right? It's a different layer of you. You know, with my last business, I was about to make the leap from 7 to 8 figures in my business. And the lessons that came the minute I declared it, the lessons that came, I simply could not meet them. And I failed. Because at my core, I wasn't solid. I carried way too many wounds, too much ancestral trauma to run an 8 figure business as a solo parent without masculine support and still keep my heart open and have fun in my business. It was impossible. Nothing is a failure, however. It's exactly what needed to happen, right? So I spent 2.5, almost 3 years in the jungle of Costa Rica and Mexico with the shamans and healers and different modalities, putting myself through emotional, mental, and spiritual healing, shattering myself into pieces, looking at it all, collecting the shiny ones, putting it back together differently this time. I walked this out and I shattered this all into pieces. And then that was actually what was actually required to rebirth myself as the next level guide for you. And some of you have walked quite the similar path when you declare there's something as a guide, as a mentor, as a visionary, you're meant to lead at the next level, but it requires a totally different kind of wisdom to really know people differently, deeply, understand how they operate because you understand yourself at level. And then it just opens up, you just see what's going on in your team. So that's this kind of integration. It's what's offered through looking at gene keys deeply, right? Every aspect and just using life as it comes to feed you the material. Some people call it triggers, right? It's the material. It's actually the nutrition. It's the food that we need to be like, oh, okay, I see this. And the biggest mistake I made during this incredibly tricky period of my life, I didn't have the right guide. I had a lot of healers in my corner, but I didn't have guides. It's a totally different thing, right? Healers and coaches, but versus guide. You know, having a skillful guide, somebody who's walked up this section of the journey and knows it, it's something that you cannot put a price tag on. It's incredible gift to have in your life. So speaking of which, if you happen to be a human design projector and or you have gene key 7, 13, 19, 22, or 47 in your profile, and there's a couple other ones, you might be a guide in your bones too. So make sure you check your profile. The link is below. Make sure you check your profile and you know what you're working with. Even though when you see the hologram in your profile, it will probably not make any sense to you. That's, yeah. So, a freaky story how I got to this. I want to share with you because I think you'll laugh. So, after all this healing, right? After all this healing I did in a jungle, I started actually following a high school classmate on Facebook after I was kind of like giving up, not gonna find my guide. All these healers is amazing, but like who's going to walk me through this? So a classmate from high school who used to sit like 20 feet from me, and how do I say this? This was somebody who was like, don't be seen, don't be heard, always straight A's, don't make any waves, just kind of a repressed person. It's like many of us, right? And I'm like watching her on Facebook, and she is leading all this, just like making all these posts, being bold, like all these people following her, like doing all these things. But it wasn't like the glamour and the vanity of the coaching industry that you see there. It was just very clean. It was almost like she was invisible and I could just go inside of myself when I was listening to what she was saying And it was so genuine. It was so beautiful. And no website, no ads, no polished copy. It was just her leading, clean, honest, and free of pretense. It was the leadership in the purest form I've ever seen, something that I've never experienced in the coaching, mentorship, whatever industry. And it could be summed up with one word, which is naturalness. And the first I thought, yeah, right. I'm gonna like hire a coach, a girl from high school. That's weird. And my spiritual ego was kind of hilarious like that. I was just like stalking her on Facebook, but not really letting her know, you know what I mean? And then I kept checking out her posts, and eventually I realized my next leap was to actually learn from her because I started listening to myself, so I did. And she started teaching me about Jinkies and explaining my profile to me. And first, I was totally paranoid about it. I was, even though I knew it was based on I Ching, it was high frequency and all that, I just didn't want to get wrapped up in the next questionable something. And, it was like this thing. And, my one of my biggest personal fears is that I'm going to go down the wrong path and I'm going to be hijacked by something. Anyway, it's one of those things. Not everybody's hang up, but it's my big hang up, right? Or was. But then I still thought, I still have questions. I don't really know who I am. Always questioning, like, should I, what kind of business should I be running? Should I even be running a business? Is this too selfish? Because I am just so scared that I'm going to lose myself in it. And then I realized, that's the freaking point, to heal my codependence and to evolve into a leader who can do that without losing myself, and to live my gifts, and to shrink myself because I'm afraid of my own success. And then there is the money thing. I just didn't want to fall into the money traps that I've fallen into in the past, because greed can be really sticky. But then through that journey, through all that healing, and losing my business multiple times, and going, like, there was a point of realization of money doesn't freaking run me. It doesn't. I like money because it supports me in my mission, and I need it, and it's important for me to live my dreams. But it doesn't motivate me whatsoever. Money by itself doesn't motivate me. If you tell me, hey, Eva, let's create a business, 100K, 200K, 500K years, true visionaries don't care about that. In our core, we just don't give a shit about that. We couldn't care less. Many of us have been there, done that. We need real purpose. We need real calling. We need real service. And it has to be true, not just convince ourselves that I'm going to make this bitch, it's going to make a difference. No, we need something real. We have to feel it in our bones. This thing is really making a difference. We're called to it. We cannot run our business otherwise. And there came a point where just money didn't motivate me, and I would rather be homeless than build a business that wasn't aligned. And that took a lot of work and a lot of fear, facing being the bag lady, which, like, literally, like, I'm, facing the fears of being the bag lady on the streets with my child. And I needed to face that. I think the two biggest fears that every entrepreneur has to face is, number one, willingness to be the bag lady. I always have to ask my clients, like, and then what? And you have to, like, what's the worst about that? And we follow the fear train until the bag lady. And then the willingness for the whole world to hate you, for the whole world to think that you're arrogant, that you're all that you're underqualified, that you're all total fraud, that you're just so selfish, and you just, like, don't care about your family, whatever it is. Right? So for the willingness for your family and the whole world to date you, those are the two things that we have to be willing to be the bag lady, and be willing for the whole world to hate you. And when we face that, that's when we start to transcend the warrior into the warrior, where we just so much gets freed up and we step into the liberation, we step into the inner Kali, and it just doesn't matter. And then you can cut straight to the chase when you're with somebody. Yeah, I still get attached to clients. I still don't want them to hate me and fire me and whatever. But still, like, this part of me that is just willing to cut through the chase and say what needs to be said and shake it up so that the other person can see what it is. That's the core of me. That's, by the way, Gene Key 38. You may not have it. This might not speak to you, and that's perfectly fine because that is part of me. That is what's in my pearl position. It's what my heart position. But you're going to get your own flavor of what's in the core of you. So, but each of us, I think, has a little bit of that inside of us, a little bit of that fight, a little bit of that honor to die for something, to really pour ourselves into something, to let parts of us die, to let parts of us who have been holding us back, to let those parts of us die. Because if we're going to take on the world, we're going to need a little bit of perseverance. We're going to need the honor to give ourselves to the fight. We're going to need the devotion. We're going to need the dedication. And we're going to need tremendous amount of courage to step out of our comfort zone. There's something about the warriors and of gift archetypes. Once you get this, once all these fears, I'm gonna be broken this and people are not gonna love me once fall away, which it's impossible to fail. Warriors don't fail. Once we're in a gift version of that, we may stumble 100 times, we may make a mistake 100 times. It's a whole bunch of trials and errors and correction and rejection, but we don't fail. Our mission doesn't fail when it's coming from the heart, from within, when our gifts are activated, when our sacred wound has been integrated. We don't fail. It's impossible. We might fail every day, but we don't fail. For 2 years, I didn't even know what to stand for. And that's like the worst. But I dug until I found it. I didn't give up. There's so many times I wanted to go back and get a job. So many times. Oh my gosh. But thank God I didn't. I poured every ounce of me of keeping the battle of finding it going and taking every archetype and integrating it until I found it. And the Gene Keys is where I cracked it. And my mission is that you have a mission. By the way, Gene Keys, they don't pay me to say this. I'm not even certified by them. I'm not even anything. Like, it's just a thing that I love. So I did discover that I'm a warrior, an intuitive, insightful, and inventive guide kind of warrior, right? But I also know that I must at all cost stay aligned with truth, integrity, and transparency. My biggest secret is that I have no secrets. It's like written right there in my profile. And that doesn't mean that it's perfect because there's layers and layers of ignorance within me also that I open up all the time, right? But it's about the process. But once I know, once I see it, I can't unsee it. So, next step for you, keep listening, keep watching. We're almost at the end. Download the Gene Keys profile if you haven't, screenshot it, put it in your phone, send it to me. Book your free consultation if you have not done that. Do it now. And once you can screenshot and send me your hologram. That'd be really cool. Or put in your birth date. And yeah, I have also a Christmas special gift. I'm gonna make a little video about it at the end. All right, on to the next one.